Recovered alcoholic. My name is Pat Rogan. Hey, Pat. Thanks to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined in our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program of AA. I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And for that, I can't even tell you how grateful I am. I hope I show how grateful I am by just, showing up and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And anybody that asks me to help, I say yes. That's all that God ever asked me to do. For all the gifts that I've been given in my life was to show up when I was asked. And when somebody asked me to sponsor them, say yes. I've just never said no to anybody. I do have a few conditions, but not many. I have 3 rules. That's it. We'll get to that when we get to the 12th step. But you've asked me to sponsor you. What you've asked me to do is take you through the steps. And you need to chase me. And my other rule is if you call me, you got to leave a message. That's it. Other than that, I'm not running your life. My job is to connect you with a power that's going to solve your problem, because that's what you guys did for me. And I didn't think that was possible when I got here. Matter of fact, I didn't even know you guys didn't drink when I got here. My sister had been coming for years and she drank. So I figured you guys had it all figured out. I think I said this when I was first here at my first step, but when I was talking about the first step, I went up to this old timer and I said to him, is this forever? And he said, no, son, it's just for today. And I just, shit, what an ass, and I didn't realize how profound that was, because that's really what it's all about. If you're new here, it's just about today. Just get through today. Do whatever it takes to get through today. And I was that guy that was in the 7:30 meeting in the morning. I was at the noon meeting. I was at the 5:30. I was at the 7. I was at the 8:30. I was at the 10. And then you guys dragged my ass off the Denny's and stuffed me full of grand slams and moons over my hammies and French slams and bloated me and sent me home. And I was able to get enough time together before you guys introduced me to this program, which is the book. Welcome to the fellowship. If you're new, we're here to support you, but the program is in here. Recovery is in here. But we'll do whatever we can to get you connected with that power. I'm still kind of playing with step 4. I talked about resentments last week, and I know if you're new here, it always kills me to start. It's like being at the 9th step and you got somebody coming in here picking on a white chip. You just don't want to talk about step 9. You want to talk about 1. But if you're at the 4th step, if you're at a place where you're looking in the mirror, for me, it was the first time in my life that I actually looked at me instead of you, then you've probably admitted that you are powerless. It's kind of a requirement. At this point in the program, you know that you are powerless over alcohol. That means your life's unmanageable. That means you can't stay stopped when you really want to stay stopped. And once you start, you can't control the amount you take. That's all that means. There's 2 questions on page 44. When you honestly want to stay stopped, you find you can't. And once you start, you find you can't control the amount you take. It says you are probably alcoholic. And they only say probably because I'm not allowed to call you one. You have to figure that out for yourself. But if you can't stay stopped and you can't control once you start, welcome. You're in the right place. The other requirement to get to this point in the program is that you be convinced that no human power will keep you stopped. I gave up 2 beautiful sons for a drink. I lost custody of my son because nobody tells me what to do. I'm a grown-ass man. And if I want to take a drink, I'm going to take a drink. Well, you're going to lose your kids. So be it. Give up a career for a drink. Given sufficient reason, you can't stay stopped. I couldn't stay stopped. Go to jail. Lose your freedom, lose your children, lose your job, lose your spouse, lose your significant other. And you pick up a drink anyway. Then you placed yourself beyond human aid. And this is about finding a power greater than human power. This whole program, what's it saying? And we acknowledge that's exactly what this book is about. Is connecting me to a power that's going to solve my problem because I can't solve it. Now, I was convinced of that at this point. And the 3rd step says, hey, are you ready to make a decision to find that power? But more importantly, the 3rd step said, you know what? It's not alcohol that's your problem, it's you. It's your behavior. You're selfish. You're self-centered. You're driven by fear, self-delusion, self-pity. You step on the toes of everybody around you and they retaliate and you blame them. You're an example of, what's it say, an extreme example of self-will run riot. You know what the next line is, right? But we usually don't think so. And now this exercise in inventory is about finding out if they're right. That's Jim B. I thought I was sitting on that third step waiting for something to happen, and nothing happened, and I couldn't believe nothing was going to happen. And I got some misinformation saying that you don't move forward till you get 3. That's wrong. I did not know that. That's misinformation. You get 3 by doing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, Stevie B and I have had this conversation. Stevie's one of those few people that I know that had an experience in step 3. I did not. I surrendered to God and I did not get my house back. They did not drop the charges. She did not drop this restraining order after I got on my knees and surrendered. Nothing changed. It wasn't until I started this inventory where I started to see the truth. And that's what we're on. We're on an exercise to find the facts, face the facts, so that we can discover the truth about me. That's what this was all about for me. And we take their inventory, and then we look in the mirror and go, okay, what did you do to start this thing rolling? What did you do to start the ball rolling? Well, how could you have reacted differently? I want to tell you something. I got 3 names down on my list. I showed you guys my 4-step had like 5 people on it. It wasn't because the people I was working with were they knew what they were doing here. I don't want to hear about the guy that pulled the chair out from under you in 3rd grade, Pat. I want to know what's killing your ass right now. What's killing you right now? What is renting space in that head of yours right in this moment? And it was her, the police, the lawyer, my father. It was it. I mean, I really didn't have much else going on. It was all that. Now, later on, I did another inventory, and there was other stuff there. It was deeper stuff. But that was what was killing me when I got it. I got to get that house back. I got to get this restraining order stopped. I got to get the lawsuit stopped. I got to get my child back. That's all that was in it. Me, I. And man, when I got to that responsibility column, I started seeing the truth. I started to see the truth. There's what came to mind. This is all your fault. This is all your fault. Were they somewhat to blame? Maybe. But it was my reaction. It was my selfishness. Me, I. My house. Did you hear what I said? My house. Not our house. Not my children's house. Not my wife's house. My house. That's who came in here. That's who walked here. My car. My children. It was all about me. And finally, that started to change. I shared with you guys last week, that I had to pray for her to get over that resentment about the house. I could not let that house go. It wasn't until I took the advice in Freedom from Bondage in the back of the book, at somebody's suggestion, and prayed for her for 2 weeks straight. And somewhere in that 2 weeks, I saw the reality of the situation. Are you going to kick your children out of their house? That's what came to my heart. I never thought of that until I prayed for over a week. I never thought that I would have to pick my 2 boys out of their bedrooms. And I got relief. Prayer is a powerful thing. I'm not going to tell you I know how that works. I really don't. I don't know if prayer changes things or prayer changes me or prayer changes my attitude towards it. I don't know. All I know is that when I pray, things change. That's all I know. And in that prayer, it changed. And I was able to let that go. Prayer is the most powerful act of love you can show for another person, even if you don't mean it. Because my prayer started out with give her what she deserves. I mean, that was my initial prayer. My friend Dave from the old home group, the old Boca Boys Club, used to say that I got a 1-car garage up here. Remember Dave? Muscle Dave? He's a 1-car garage up here. I can either love or hate. I can't do both. I can either pray for them or hate them, but I can't do both. And when I'm praying for them, I'm not hating. I'm healing. I'm healing. I don't know about that, but I'm healing. And I was able to let go of that. You want the house? Take the house. She didn't even want the house. She was just messing with me. But, and importantly, last week, I think somebody said it when I left last week, that I never addressed stuff, because I call it a 5-column inventory. Some people use 4-column inventories. I see 5 columns in the book. I'm a Joe and Charlie guy. I'm a big book guy. So I'm a 5-column inventory guy. Who are you angry at? Why? How was I affected? What did you do? What was the exact nature of the wrong? What was the character defects that you were using to satisfy those instinctual drives, right? What character defect, what tools was I using to make you like and accept me? What tools were I using to get the material success? What tools were I using to get sex? Well, they look like selfishness. They look like dishonesty. They look like fear. They look like inconsideration. These 4 core defects of character. And ask me, which one of those were you? Well, usually it was all. Usually it was all. That's how I lived my life. It was fear-based. And I did whatever I needed to do to satisfy what I wanted, to get what I wanted, to satisfy those instinctual drives. I will do anything to get you to like and accept me. I will do anything for money or possessions, and I will do anything to get laid. I'm sorry for the cross. Put this cross right in front of me. Get me to stop swearing. And by the way, this is why they ask us not to get into relationships early in recovery, right? Because resentment is the number one offender, it says. What causes more resentments than relationships, right? I mean, really. I mean, even good relationships. I shared with you some of the ones that I had, that come up. We were laughing because Shannon reminded me of a conversation we were having in my truck on the way to a meeting one night. And she goes, I'm freezing in here. And she goes, why am I always freezing in the truck? And I said, I don't know. And she goes, well, you're cold at home and you're hot in the truck. And I said, yeah. And she goes, yeah, it's because it's free in the truck. You don't have to pay for the air conditioning. She just called me a cheap bastard. That's how my mind works. Then I replay that over and over again. I'll tell you a whole different story once I get to the meeting. You come in here, alky love. You met in treatment. In the med line. And then you see each other at the bus stop or at Publix, and it was meant to be because we ran into each other again. And then you tell her you love her on Facebook, and she don't answer. You know that she's there because the green light's on. But the green dot going there. So you text, and then you see the little dots floating there, but no answer. But she liked some other guy's post on Facebook, and she's sleeping with him, probably seeing him. That's probably what's going on here. It's called My Life is Unmanageable and I Want to Share it with You. That's what it is. Mike used to say 2 flakes making a blizzard, right? Yeah. We met in the med line. She moved in. We had a baby, and then we found out we didn't even like each other. But that is my pattern, right? I mean, I don't know if I'm alone, but this is my pattern. If you don't sleep with me, move in, right? And then and then what happens? You end up having a kid, right? And then let's get to know each other, And this relationship I'm in now, it was the first time ever that it started in a different order. And it was successful, right? Let's get to know each other. Let's take that sleeping thing together off the table. It's a true story. We met each other first date. We said, let's take that off the table, please. I asked, can we take sex off the table? And just get to know each other. I think we were both relieved, and we did. We spent 3 months just getting to know each other. Do I like her? I never thought that. I never thought to see if I liked somebody before I took them home, That's an amazing gift. I got that here, by the way. You guys taught me that. Garrett taught me that. You know, I mean, that's the mentors that I had in my life, and that's how it's supposed to work. Anyways, I got sidetracked there. If you're new, don't get old. Bill goes on to talk about fear, the underlying corroding thread underneath it all. All my resentments are fear-based. You know, I could probably take my whole resentment sheet and transfer it to my fear sheet. I resent my wife, I'm afraid of her. I resent her lawyer, I'm afraid of him. I resent my father, I'm afraid of him. I resent the police, I'm afraid of them. Then we go on to all those intangibles, right? I'm afraid of life, I'm afraid of death. You know, I'm afraid I'm going to be alone, and I get into a relationship, she's going to leave. You know, get the job, I'm going to lose the job. I'm never going to have a job, I'm going to lose a job. It's just this paradox life that we live. It's my thorn. Fear is my thorn. I struggle with it today. You know, I struggle with it constantly. It is the demon. You know, it is, and I thought that. I really did think that. And I would hear people from the podium say, you know, if you're still in fear, then you don't trust God. And I don't know if that's true, because I trust God, but I'm still in fear. And I don't know label it what you want. Label it anxiety. Clapton calls it torment. I like that word. I'm a tormented individual. You know, I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just, I don't know where it comes from. I don't even care anymore. You know, prayer is the answer. That's what I know. And I love, you know, I heard recently, I heard Bishop Barron do a sermon on the thorn in the flesh. It was the most amazing sermon I've ever heard. And what he said, and I'm saying what he said to me in that talk was, would you pray if you weren't afraid? And the question is, no, I would not. Prayer brings me to God. Would I go up in the corner here before the meeting, and I'm going to tell you something. You felt like I felt before I come up here and speak, you'd run. I mean, it's panic attack, you know. But I go off in the corner and I ask God for help and inspiration. I ask him, just let me be me. Just bring me up there and do with me what you will, you know. And I'd walk through it. Would I do that? Would I pray if the fear wasn't there? Probably not. If I got up in the morning, am I the only one that gets up in the morning and looks in the mirror and goes, shit, you know? I mean, my next thought is thank you, you know, for another sober day, you know. I mean, but my first thought is not that. It's not. I'm just don't wake up grateful. I don't know why, you know. But then I go into my mode. I got, you know, we'll talk about it more at 11. But I go into my specific readings that I do every morning. I get a little quiet time together, you know, and I just sit for maybe a minute or two, which seems like 15 minutes to me. You know, if I could just stop the voices for 30 seconds, I would be thrilled to death. But it's a difficult thing to do. But I get centered in the morning before I leave the house. You know, would I do that if I wasn't anxious about the day? No, I would not. He gives examples of some really, really, I mean, Mother Teresa is one of the examples that you get. Imagine that she was tormented. You know, imagine, you know, Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln. I mean, he goes on and on. So famous people that I would have thought, oh my God, I'm in good company, is what I'm saying. You know, I'm not alone. So I believe that courage is the ability to walk through it, not the absence of it. And if it works different for you, that's fine. But that's just who I am. I'm just wired that way. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where that fear comes from. I don't know if that's trauma that took place that I can't even connect to as a child. I don't know if that's the violence that took place in my house. I don't know if I'm just wired that way. I don't know. And I don't even care anymore. You know? I have a way out. And it's the God that you connected me to. And when I say God, whatever you think that is, if you're new here, whatever you think that is, you know, creative intelligence, spirit of the universe, whatever you want to name it, the God of your understanding. I'm not big on inanimate objects. Choose one. It says choose one. It doesn't say create one. Choose one. energy. Why am I afraid? Like, what am I afraid of? Why? What part of me is affected? Am I doing anything to create that fear? Am I living the lie that's creating the fear? Am I violating principles to create that fear? Am I stealing, cheating? Am I acting out on one of those defects of character? Am I being selfish, dishonest, self-seeking? Is this relationship based on fear or the fear of being alone? Is this based on love or fear of being alone? Am I just damn inconsiderate? That God within, right? This is about removing the things that are blocking me from this spirit of the universe, this thing that's blocking me from the God within. I was listening to the Bishops and Dion's interview. You get a chance to watch that's pretty good. Yeah. And he said, the bishop says, we are all haunted by God, whether we know it or not. Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. You know, that guilt, that shame, that remorse, you know, that was wrong. You know, that part, you know, that deep down within every one of us, that conscience. Ben used to call it the soul, the part of you that knows that it knows. You know, that part, you know, it's about bringing that to the light, right? It's about bringing that to the light. It's about letting the light in. How do I remove the things that are blocking me from that? Well, I got to change my behavior. That's what the third step is saying. You need to change your behavior. You need to see the truth about your behavior, and then you're going to need to change it. That's where 6 and 7 comes in later. You're going to need to change. You can't continue running on selfishness and dishonesty and fear and inconsideration. Well, we can go to the 7 deadly sins. You can't continue to run on pride and anger and greed and gluttony and lust and envy and sloth. You can't continue to run on that kind of stuff, or you're going to be in conflict with the people around you, with yourself, and with the power that you're trying to connect to. And that's the deal. We need to get right spiritually, mentally, and physically. All 3 dimensions. And I'm starting to see some light. You know, I started to let go of those resentments, the ones I couldn't let go of, I prayed on. I start to understand that fear, I can overcome it with prayer. I can walk through it. I can ask God. When we get to the 11th step, it says we get up in the morning. If we got something we need to do that day that's causing fear, we ask God to guide us. We ask, by the way, is Big Book code for what? We pray. They don't say we pray. They say we ask. That's a prayer. There's no other way to talk to God. The last inventory they ask us to take, to me, is probably the most important. In step 8, when we get there, in the 12 and 12, it says defective relationships with other people is the cause of all of our problems, including our alcoholism, all of our problems. Defective relationships with other people. However that comes about, I don't know. I didn't have a great role model, or role models, I should say. My father left. I was, raised by my uncle, who was not a great role model himself. Great workers taught me a lot of good stuff, taught me a lot of trades. But they were not good role models when it came to relationships. And the sex inventory, I like to look at it as not just a sex inventory, because if I'm sponsoring you, I do not want a list of everybody you slept with. I don't want a list of everybody you had consensual sex with. I don't want that. That's not what we're looking for here. I want to know about your relationship, defective relationship. Who did you hurt? Right? The questions in the first 2 inventories were, who hurt me? The sex inventory is different. Who did you hurt? Not who hurt you, but who did you hurt? In pursuit of a relationship. Forget about the sex. Sex is part of that. But in pursuit of relationship, who did you hurt? Because I can hurt people today that I'm in a relationship with and not cheat by just being a flirt, by just pursuing attention, by just getting my ego fed by somebody. I can hurt that person I'm with and never had slept with anybody. But I've also stepped outside of my relationships. I have destroyed beautiful relationships for a brief moment, trust me, a brief moment of pleasure. That's sad. That's sad. You know, that I would walk, I would cross that line constantly, that there was no principal line for me. There was no line. I didn't even think about the line. And I think that area of my life is where I disconnected with the church and disconnected from God, because it just was no fun on that side of the island. You know what I mean? I grew up in a weird time. A lot of us, they're my age, I grew up in the 60s and 70s where, it was sex anytime with anyone, anywhere, any position, And you were doing it wrong if you weren't enjoying it, But I grew up in the church where it was sinful and it was for reproduction only, and it was one person and only in marriage, one position. That's a conflict right there. You know what I mean? Like, I got this where if I have sex, I'm going to the fire. And over here, they're saying you should be enjoying yourself. And alcohol allowed me to cross that line. It allowed me to step outside of principles and do whatever the hell I wanted to do as long as it was pleasurable for me. It allowed me to cross that line. And you know what? I blame alcohol for it. That was just who I was. Just who I was. Self-satisfaction at any cost. I don't care who I hurt, but it was self-satisfaction at any cost. Did I regret that later when I had to suffer the consequences? Yeah. Didn't stop me, though. Didn't stop me from doing it again. And I could do that sober. I could blow up my life sober. I'm one bad decision from blowing up my life sober. And I feel for you young people coming in. Guys that come in at 16, 17, 18. There's some designer stuff out there bringing you down quick. It ain't like the alcohol, where you could go 20, 30 years drinking before you land in here. They got some designer stuff that is bringing you down quick. And you get this, almost going to drop an F-bomb. You get to blow up your life sober. How great is that? You don't even have the option of medicating. You come in here and blow up your life sober. You get to learn these lessons sober. I came in here and I was done. I was just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. So I'm getting some relief. I'm getting relief from the resentments in step 4. I'm getting relief from the fear in step 4. 2/3 of my Charlie would say we have this storeroom up here that's full of resentment, fear, and guilt, remorse, and shame. We've removed the resentment and fear, and 2/3 of my mind now is open to this power. I'm starting to feel relief. I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to see the error of my ways, and I need to change. I get it. I don't know if I told you, I called my ex-wife at the time, and I said, I figured it out. I'm an alcoholic. She said, no, you're an asshole. And you drink a lot. And she hung up. I told my sponsor, he said, that was accurate. That was accurate. That's who I was. When I walk in, I hate that person that walked in here today. I look back and our book talks about looking back with morbid reflection. I don't try not to do that, but man, I regret who I was. I look back with regret. There were people that had to take some hits for me to get where I'm at. That's a shame. The children were involved. Women were involved. My mother was involved. A woman who didn't get a good night's sleep unless I was in jail. Wondering whether I was dead or alive. When I got arrested, when I got framed for that mescaline charge, my uncle was going to come bail me out. My mother said, no, I need some rest. Leave him there. That's what I put that woman to. Then Charlie does one more list after that, and it's a harms other than relational, and that's student loans, breaking and entering, card theft, credit card debt, people I robbed. I left the Derby Lounge one night and sideswiped a city block. That had to be on there. That kind of stuff. I owed. I racked up $100,000 in credit cards. I was snorting my paychecks and drinking. What a life. Anybody remember that life where you're overshooting the mark both ways, right? Like too high, too low, too high, too low, for days, right? I found that sweet spot for about 5 minutes. It was like, I found that, there we go. And then boom, I missed it, And then chased it for 3 more days. What a life. Where I struggled, I was not that guy that was afraid to do a 4-step. I mean, I don't know why people are. It's a very positive step. It's about truth is all it's about. It's not a list of dirty, nasty things that you did. It's just a list of people you're pissed off at and people that you're afraid of and people that you've hurt in relationships. It's not this terrible thing. I mean, I know people sometimes look at it that way. I don't know why. What was terrible was staying the way I was. That's what scared me more than a 4-step. If you've got a way out of the torment that I'm dealing with right now, give me a pen and paper. I'm open. Let's go. Let's try it. I'm willing to try it. And I started to get relief right there. Now, the guilt, remorse, and shame we're going to deal with later in steps 8 and 9 when we get there. But the resentments and the fear we can deal with right there, right in step 4. Real or imagined? Are these real or are these imagined? And if they're real, we're going to pray for them, and we're going to put them on an 8-step list later on, and we're going to make it right. Where I stumbled was in step 5. I got trust issues. I don't trust you. Pete and I were talking about this last night. I didn't do a 5th step with one of you people until I was 5 years old. I did not. I was at Denny's with you gossiping about all those people in the rooms. Saying what a shit speaker that was up there that night. Talking about so-and-so, seeing so-and-so, and doing such and such. I figured my 5th step's going to be on this Denny's table tomorrow if I share it with somebody. By the way, gossip kills. Just kills in these rooms. Stop it if you're doing it. Just stop. If they're not there, don't talk about it. That's the rule. They're not here, we're not talking about it. We'll wait until they're here. It just kills. I mean, I wasn't going to share. I was part of it. I was part of it early on, the Denny's table, man. That's what we did. Called visiting about that. Yeah. It's called gossip. So I was part of the Boca Boys Club, part of my home group, right? They're all over me about doing this 5th step. And I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. When are you going to get to it, Pat? I'll get to it. I shared with you guys about that home group, right? Those guys that taught me how to behave in the AA. Those guys that said, if you took your cell phone out in that meeting, they'd stop the meeting. You did not get up and walk around while the speaker was talking. I remember I asked if I could chair the meeting. They said, yeah, just wear a collar. Make sure you have a collar on to chair the meeting. And I said, okay. So I got off work late the next week, and I ran over to the meeting because I was running late. I get there, and I don't have a collar on. I start passing out the readings. They said, you can't chair. I said, what do you mean I can't chair? You said I could chair. He said, yeah, you have to have a collar on. I said, what's the difference whether I have a collar on or not to chair this meeting? He said, the difference is you can't chair. Gave him the finger. I left that meeting. Never coming back here again. Came back the next week with a collar on. Chaired the meeting the rest of the month. So now I don't come to the podium without a collar. I don't come here with a T-shirt. They just said, hey, respect the room you're in. These guys, all they were trying to do was get this little brat, this 36-year-old brat, to follow a few simple freaking rules. That's what it was about. Why are you telling me what to do? You're not my boss. This is my life. I would have these arguments, these philosophical arguments with these old guys. They used to just laugh. Pat, if this is not the most important thing in your life, you're going to die. I said, no, the most important thing in my life is my children. And after that, my job, because without my job, I can't feed my children. And you know what? And the house is right behind that. I don't know where my wife was, but the house was right behind that. Because if I don't have a house, they don't have a place to live. So my kids, my job, my house. And then they would remind me, didn't you lose all that? When you came here, didn't you blow all that up? Weren't your kids taken from you? Doesn't she have the house? Aren't you divorced? Few simple rules, Pat. Just stop and listen for a change. So they're on me about doing this fifth step. So I decide, because I think by law, I don't think a priest is allowed to share. I don't know if there's actual law, but maybe a code. I don't know, But like I grew up Catholic, so I figured, this is a sacred thing with the priest. He can't say anything, even if he's drawn into court, he can't say anything. And so I decided to do it with a priest. So I called St. Andrew's Church at Coral Springs at about 11 o'clock at night, thinking nobody will answer the phone. And I'll tell the boys that I tried last night, nobody answered. And Father Quinn picked up the phone. He said, St. Andrews? And I said, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. He said, oh, and you want to do a fifth step? He said, now, I didn't know it, but the Coral Springs group had been meeting there for years, And be in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I was there. I spent 2.5 hours with Father Quinn. My life forever changed. Ever changed. I left that office. It was the first time in my life. I mean, as a child, as an adult, it was the first time in my life that I was at peace without a substance in my body. Without a substance. Nothing. Sober. God entered my heart that day. I became a believer. Now, it was the God of my understanding at that point. Or misunderstanding, if you will. But I knew God was. I knew God was. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences that have revolutionized our whole attitude on life and towards our fellows, right? The central fact of our life today is that God has entered our heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous and commences to do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. That's what happened to me that day. God entered my heart and removed the obsession. Not the thought, by the way. I've thought about using a lot of times. I stubbed my toe, I think Vicodin. I don't know what the hell's going on. My second thought's ibuprofen, but my first thought is still, they're no fun without beer on them anyway. I left that office, I'm looking around, and a whole new world came into view. There was flowers, these bright red flowers, these bright yellow flowers, all this green vegetation everywhere. I was going back to work, or going to work, and I'm looking down the Sawgrass Expressway, and I go, oh my God, these trees are everywhere. I realized I've been looking at asphalt and bumpers my whole life. I walked with my head down, staring at the asphalt. I didn't acknowledge anybody that walked by me. I never acknowledged anybody that was parked beside me or sitting beside me at a light. You could have passed away in the car beside me. I would have never noticed. I'm looking at that light, because when that thing goes yellow, this one's going green, and I got places to be. So as soon as that would go yellow, I'd get ready, so that I can hit the horn, because this guy's got tunnel vision, man. Tunnel vision. I finally saw the light. I'm going home that night, I see this gorgeous sunset, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't wait to get to the Sawgrass toll booth to tell this lady about this sunset. And I get there and I go, look at that. She goes, what is that? She said, yeah, it's a sunset. It's there every night. First time I saw it. That's the formula. See, that's why there's no belief requirement when you get here. Just be willing. Right? If you're sitting here and you're that atheist that's sitting in this room and you refuse to believe in God, how about maybe? How about maybe? Why would you do that? Because you're going to freaking die. Right? If you're the real alcoholic addict, you're going to die in alcoholic death, or you're going to accept spiritual hell. You're going to go on to the bitter end, blot not your intolerable situation, or you're going to find this power that's going to solve your problem. That's why you would say, okay, maybe. Then you make the decision, then you do the work. and God shows up. And there's proof. And then there's proof. No different than somebody telling you there's electricity running through those wires that turn on them lights. And when it's off, you're going, show me. Show me the electricity. No, go get the switch. No, show me first. Well, faith comes after you hit the switch. You hit the switch, boom, the electricity turns light on, you go, yes, I believe. That's exactly what happens here. Exactly what's happening here. Now, there's some clear-cut, specific, exact, precise directions that you got to follow if you want to get what they got or get what I got. You got to do things the way it's outlined in this book. This is not a buffet. The fellowship is a buffet. What you hear in the fellowship, what you hear from me, you can take it or leave it. What's in this book, you don't take or leave that. This is specific. This is precise. This is clear-cut and exact. You want what they got, you got to do this that way. What you hear from me, you can take that or leave it. But not this. You want results? You want to come to believe? Here it is, right here. Here it is. I came to believe that day. Revolutionized my life. Changed my whole attitude and outlook on life. Now, you got to maintain that. You know, there's some, and to me, this is I always say at the end of step 5, when we do that 5th step, I go, welcome to recovery. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. You're in. Because this is the foundation. These 5 are the foundation. We're going to do this the rest of our lives, but this is the foundation. These are the tools that are going to set up the rest of this program. Those promises in the 5th step, I oh my God. I think they're more powerful than the 9th step. We can look the world in the eye. We can be at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs or none, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. That's an amazing promise right there. That's where I was. That's where I was. Now, how do I stay there? Well, you know what? We're going to get to 6 and 7. I better damn sure change my behavior. Because if I'm going to continue to live life like I was, nothing is going to change. I'm going to create another 4th step. I'm going to create another 5th step. I can't live a life based on selfishness and self-centeredness. I can't live a life based on inconsideration. I cannot live a life based on dishonesty. I got to follow some damn principles to keep what I got in that 5th step. Some get it. Stevie got it at 3. I got it at 5. Some people get it at 9. Some people get it, live in 10, 11, and 12. Doesn't matter when you get it. Once you've got it, you can't deny it. God is. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me do that.